because we know now that evolutions will soon be a thing. So instead of looking at a chart like this, we're going to be looking at a chart like this. We are looking at 705 billion total combinations.
What's going on, Axie fam? Elijah here, back with another video. Today I have one that I am very excited about. Joining me is one of the newest members of the Meditate family, and that is Ryan, who also goes by Axie Faction, which is his YouTube channel. There's going to be a link to that in the description below. Ryan puts out amazing content covering the most important topics of what's happening in the Axie Infinity universe. I reached out to him because I was so impressed with his videos, and he has joined MT8, which is amazing. Thanks for being on the channel today, Ryan.
Of course, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having me on the channel.
Today, we're going to be discussing SLP and if the price will ever recover. Before we get into the details, what are your initial thoughts on the current situation here?
You know, SLP, it's such a loaded topic, to be perfectly honest. SLP is the main utility token for breeding, and I think we're going to get into that a little bit because breeding has really yet to see its stride. A lot of people think that breeding a little bit out of control, but when I go through everything I have prepared for you, it's really going to put things into perspective with how far we still have to go. You know, we're in the middle of a transition period right now between Battles V1 and Battles V2, and I think that's
we're calling it V3 now. I don't know, I get yelled at.
Oh yeah, that's right. Battles V3. I've gotten a little bit of that myself. Yeah, so I really do want to focus on V3 because that is the closest thing that we know is coming down the road work.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that there's a lot of implications coming with this big transition that you're talking about. Before we get into the details, I just want to say one more thing about Meditate the Guild. We are recruiting people. We're now in the off season, so we have applications open for people who want to join as scholars. If you want to join as a semi-pro player, you can apply for that. And then if you want to join as a content creator or a community member, that is open as well. So if you're an artist or writer, you want to contribute to us in our long-term vision, then there is a place for you to apply. There will be links in the description for all three of those positions. And our Discord is now public and open to everyone, where you can just join and hang out, talk PvP. You can learn more about Meditate, the Meditate Training Academy. So there's a link to our Discord in the description below as well, if you feel like checking that out. Okay, let's jump right back into the action. What are we starting with?
You know, I am not a financial advisor. I'm not an expert by any means. I'm a gamer and a crypto enthusiast. I love Axie Infinity, and I think that sharing ideas is the best way to strengthen the community. So we've gotten a number of leaks from both the Axie Infinity Twitter, Sky Mavis doing their developer updates, and even a couple leaks from Jihos and Psychout themselves. And if we focus on Psychout's tweet, he says acquiring users for the current game is a waste since Axie Origin is so close.
Yeah, that's a crazy tweet. I mean, that shook a lot of people. It's hard to know exactly what to make of this. I will say my own personal take is that Axies are going to retain value. You have to think about all of the mega guild, thousands of scholars. That means that they have tens of thousands of Axies. So the team isn't going to quote unquote like rug on them and make their Axies useless. There's going to be a way to transfer the value of V1 or V2 Axies into Origin Axies. How that happens, I'm not exactly sure, but I think people get scared when they see this and think like, oh, are the Axies I have going to be completely useless? Well, for one, I think that the two games will probably run side by side for some time, by which I mean V2 and V3. I think that they will coexist. What are your thoughts, Ryan?
Now, I definitely think that Axies are going to retain value in one way or another. Whether or not they're still going to be viable in Battles V2 or Battles V3 is yet to be seen. But regardless of their use in Battles V2 or V3, they will also have use cases in LAN coming down in the end of 2022 as well. And then finally, with the releasing mechanisms, which I'll talk about in a little bit later, they've clearly stated that it is a form of returning value to Axies that are no longer have a place in the ecosystem. So I want to focus on evolutions. right? So evolutions, that's one of the most exciting things that we're going to see coming out of Battles V3. Right now, Axies only have 4 cards to choose from. In V3, we're going to introduce eyes and ears, and then each of those body parts will be able to branch off into 2 other potential evolutions. So if you take a look at my trusty chalkboard, we're going to go through some quick math if you're fine with that. It's real simple. I think you'll be able to follow along. So I did this research on January 5th, and according to activeplayer.io, we have 2.3 million daily active players from the past 30 days. All right, now we know that each player has to have at least 3 Axies in order to play the game. So we take 2.3 million and we times it by 3, and now we know that we have 6.9 million Axies currently being used on a daily basis. All right, now each Axie has 6 body parts that could potentially evolve, right? So we take 6.9, we times it by 6 body parts that could potentially evolve, and we get 41.4 million evolutions. That's the baseline of what we're looking at moving into Battles V3. Now let's do a little thought experiment. Now let's say that they choose an arbitrary price of 1,000 SLP per evolution. Now that number could definitely be skewed. I think it's realistic because it's not super easy to get, but it's definitely attainable by anyone who has the drive to get the SLP to evolve their body parts. I don't think we're going to see all of our body parts evolve at once. I think we're definitely going to see some of them evolve as we start to see some of the cards that are available. I think it's going to be clear that some are going to be better than others. Of course, not all at once. But let's take an estimate of just half. Let's say all the players evolve half of their potential evolutions. So not the 41.4 million. Let's look at just like around 20 million. At the price point of 1,000 SLP per evolution, we are looking at 20 billion SLP being spent on evolution alone.
Sheesh.
Yeah. Those are big numbers, and of course, the numbers could be skewed a little bit, but this is the kind of grand scale that you need to look at in order to get the bigger picture.
And, in hindsight, looking at it this way, it seems like such a hill to climb up from right now with SLP at its current price, but this is the sort of thing that I do believe the Axie team is thinking about, is how to do this in like large, effective ways that are part of their plan anyway. As Jiho's mentioned, evolutions has been in the discussion years ago, but this has been a process. You can't just have everything roll out at once. And now we're going to see things like this, new ways to implement that fit the vision of Axie Infinity and Lunacia. This is exciting. We'll see what the numbers look like exactly. This is all speculation.
Of course.
But that's why we're here, to have some fun and think about the future.
Yeah, definitely. And so, of course, what you said is true. This is all just speculation. But this is also just the calculations for direct burning. The introduction of evolution is actually going to add some indirect burning as well. So we know that there are 6 body parts, right? Each body part is going to be able to evolve, branch off into 2 other potential body parts. You know what that means is, take a single Axie that we all know, like a pure aqua with koi and risky fish. You will need hundreds of that one particular Axie, hundreds of identical copies, in order to get every single combination of potential cards with evolutions introduced.
I see what you're saying. Yes, to hit all those different markers. I think that there is possibly going to be a reroll mechanism. I think I've heard that like floating around. I don't know, but it might be that if you have Axies that you don't have any use for, there might be a way to just spend a little SLP, re-roll it, and maybe get like a new set of its native class moveset. It's honestly going to be very interesting to see how this plays out. But you're right. If there isn't a re-roll, then we're going to need a lot of Axies to evolve the game, is what you're saying.
Exactly. Now, I haven't heard about the potential re-rolling. I think it's a great idea. I would love to hear more about that if you can find the resources.
I'll try to find something for you.
Yeah, definitely. That'd be awesome. So, assuming that re-rolling isn't a part of the equation, we are going to need a ton of Axies, identical Axies. So we're going to see a lot more breeding coming out here as well. We're going to need a lot more breeders creating Axies to fulfill the needs of the player base once evolution comes in. That covers most of what I have for evolutions. I want to move into crafting and power-ups. We received this leak, I think it was in December, of some of the potential power-ups that we might see in Battles V3. Now, these are definitely not final versions of what these power-ups might look like, but they're cool little concept arts. Here we see that Sky Mavis has directly told us that body part power-ups may require SLP to craft. So we know that this is a big potential burn for SLP going into the future.
Well, what is a power? What are these power-ups supposed to entail? What does that even mean compared to an evolution?
So they haven't given us a lot of detail on what these power-ups could do. We know that there's going to be at least one power-up per body part, because they specifically say body part power-ups.
What's good is seeing more ways for SLP to get burned, and that's what we're getting hints of, right?
Yeah.
Power-ups, evolutions. These are like big, I don't want to call them overhauls in the ecosystem, but just big additions that are going to help things stay balanced, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, having the ability to change a power up instead of having to change the Axie when we move into a new meta, it could be really beneficial for the player base. It's going to add so many different variations of what we already know to the game.
And think about how more complex this meta is going to be if we're talking 6 body parts, power-ups, crafting. It's going to be way more advanced. I hope way more advanced and intriguing than what we have right now with V2. Even though we've all loved the game, we have a nice esports scene. I think Origin is just going to take everything to the next level. Let's. What else we got?
So there's this leak that was given to us a couple months ago. Have you seen this before?
I've seen it once or twice.
All right, wonderful. All right, so there's not a ton of information we can go off. We have some cards at the bottom that we could speculate on, but that's not really important for this video. What I want to focus on is on the left side of this Axie, over here.
Oh boy. Okay.
This to me looks like power-up slots. There's nothing else that they've ever mentioned that could fulfill this role in the leak that we're seeing. But if you pay attention, there's actually 7 power-up slots, not 6.
Okay.
So I'm thinking we see a power-up for each of the 6 body parts, and then a seventh power-up for either the body type or class.
Okay. Yep, that makes sense. Like almost maybe there's like a finisher power-up type thing for whatever class it is. That would be pretty sick.
Like a final smash or something.
yeah, could be. Are those on the right? Like, do those look like things that can evolve? It kind of looks like bars on the right that can move up, right?
Exactly.
There's space. Yeah, if you want to highlight that, can you? I don't know if people can see it, but there's like slots there for that little dot to move.
Exactly. So these spaces on the right. These are correlating to its body parts. So we can see Sparky, the card for that body part is here. Foxy, the card for that body part is here. Foxy again here. Persimmon. And you can actually see this if you go to the marketplace as well. If you go to the marketplace and look up any Axie, it'll say next to their body parts what level they are. We can look at their body parts and we can see that they actually have already implemented these leveling systems into the body parts.
Was that always there? Am I a complete like goofball for never like realize? I guess why would I ever notice or care about it? It's not really relevant in the current state of the game. But
exactly,
that was always there? I assume.
You know, I don't know if it's always been there or not. It only.
I'll have to go back into some old YouTube videos and see.
Definitely, yeah. It only came into my awareness once they updated the marketplace. That's when I noticed
guys,
it.
This is gonna be insane. Are you seeing this? Like, did you see that artwork for V3 and the fact that they're lining this up and getting ready for an entire new system? It's going to be amazing. Look at what they did with the like bare bones version of this game. We're all hooked on it. We all love it. Wait until they actually try to release a final product. It's going to be sick.
It's going to be phenomenal. No, you're absolutely right. It's going to be huge. So back to your question, I believe that these little notches next to the body parts on the right here, you're actually going to be able to level up your body parts so that they do more damage or are more successful.
Bro, I am trying not to lose my mind right now.
Don't freak out too much, because there's a strong possibility that the power-ups and the that the power-ups and the upgrading level ups for the body parts might just be for the PvE. They've mentioned storylines. They're really trying to focus on making the game fun to play without being so competitive.
Yeah, that's a great point. It probably won't be for PvP. You're right, because it's maybe not. There may be some. I don't know. We'll have to see. But it makes sense that this makes it way more intriguing for climbing in PvE and having fun and making your Axies really unique for land as well. Like getting to see them evolve and look different and look cool. And then for PvP, there's going to need to be some equal playing field for things to be balanced. We're going to have to see how that goes.
Exactly.
But this is an amazing piece of information.
Yeah, no. So if you ask me, I think the leveling up for body parts is probably going to be strictly PvE, but the introduction of power-ups has a strong potential to still be in competitive play. It's the same thing as switching out cards from your deck if you were to play Yu-Gi-Oh, Magic, or Pokemon. You know, just being able to slightly customize these Axies and using power-ups that are available to everybody through the marketplace. I don't think it's unreasonable to assume that it could be used for competitive play. So taking this all into account, let's do some calculations like we did before.
Okay.
Right? We know that we have 2.3 million players, 6.9 million Axies currently being used. All right, now we times that number by 7 because we know that there are 7 potential power-up slots. So that means there's going to be 48.3 million power-up slots. Now, with the SLP price here, again, we're going to do a little bit of a speculation. The SLP price, I want to put it at around 200. And that's a fairly conservative estimate, but we know that SLP is not going to be the only price spent for power-ups, right? You need the crafting materials as well, and I'm expecting those to have a high price point. So I don't think that the SLP is going to be too outrageous here.
I got you. Yeah. So that's why it might be lower than what we were speculating before with the evolutions.
Exactly. Because we know that we're going to need crafting materials to get this. If we do the math, at 48 million times 200 is almost 10 billion SLP spent to fully power up all the Axies currently being used. And that, again, I think that's a conservative estimate. I think that we could see much higher numbers going into this.
I agree. I think we could see way higher as well. Yeah, this is crazy. I mean, and even if like you said, half of the players do the power ups, but the price is twice as expensive and it's 400 SLP, we still arrive around 10 billion, or it could be way higher than 200 SLP because think about it as well. SLP is really cheap right now. Exactly. So it's just going to be depending on the marker that they want to use. It's like in the past, they've adjusted the SLP price for breeding accordingly to, what it needed to be. So I wouldn't be surprised if this turns out being a much higher number as well. We'll just have to see.
Definitely. And that's a great point. They have mentioned in the past that their breeding costs, they plan to have that automated. They plan to have algorithms tracing the current amount of AXS, the current amount of SLP, and that price point for how much is it going to cost to breed my Axies is going to constantly be changing on a day-to-day basis. And it's very possible that they do the same thing for crafting costs and evolution costs as well. This is more speculation for a direct burning mechanism from crafting. But this is also going to have huge implications in indirect burning as well. So we know that the only way to get materials for crafting at this point is going to be through the releasing mechanism for Axies, right? They call it the Axie sink.
Okay, what does that mean?
So the Axie sink is a burning mechanism for Axies themselves. Right now, the amount of Axies that exist can potentially be infinite, right? As long as there are players that decide to breed Axies, that number of Axies is going to continue to rise. But with the releasing mechanism, we are going to be able to take those Axies, those floor price Axies that aren't going to sell for very much, we're not using them anymore, and we're going to be able to release them back into the wild. It's going to render that Axie useless. And in return, we're going to receive materials that we use for crafting and upgrading land, as you can see here.
So it's a way to burn your Axie and get something in return? Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. And those crafting materials that we get in return are what we're going to use for those power-ups. Because until land gameplay is released, there's no other way to get crafting materials.
Right. So we'll get the crafting materials. We burn some Axies. How does that affect?
That affects SLP a lot because as the amount of Axies decrease, the need for breeding will increase. And as long as the more breeding there are, the more SLP is burned, and that's good for the entire economy. Sky Mavis actually said it really well here, if I can read this to you. It says, Axie releasing burning consumption. This is a very significant feature that we have to be very careful around. Since the primary utility of SLP is to create Axies, having this burning mechanism for Axies would increase demand for SLP and AXS.
Right. So it basically becomes almost a snowball effect in terms of things needing to go in the right direction. You can burn Axies for crafting. You then need more Axies for the marketplace. People have to use SLP probably for all that stuff, a little bit to get your power-ups, SLP for evolutions, SLP to make more Axies. Seems like a pretty good situation.
Exactly. And you can see how they've kind of had that thought process with everything that they're introducing. Evolutions is going to cause a boom in breeding, and it's the same thing with crafting. With crafting, the only way to get these materials is through burning Axies. With Axies being burned, the need for more Axies is going to increase, so you're going to see a ton more breeding. Everything that they're introducing interweaves into itself, into the other aspects of the game as well. It's really interesting. So that brings me to, my final point of what I want to talk about today, and that is the importance of breeding, because that is the main mechanism for burning SLPs. Sky Mavis has been super clear that SLP is mainly meant for breeding. It might be used for other aspects as well, but breeding is what its main focus is. And so a lot of people have complained that, breeding has gone too far. We've seen breeding farms that just breed the crap out of certain Axies to the point where, an Axie that was worth $800 is suddenly worth less than $100 just because they've been bred so often. There are a lot of Axies, even floor price Axies that you can buy for extremely cheap right now. And although they might not be very useful now, Sky Mavis and Axie Infinity has told us time and time again that the Axie utility will change over time, especially as we head into Battles v3 and land gameplay. If we look here at this chart that I made for all the different body parts and all the different categories, that's 192 body parts. Now I bring this up because I want to show you just how little that we've seen of the total combination of Axies that are possible. Right, so to find the total number of combinations possible, what we have to do is we have to take the eye category and times it by the ear category, then times it by the back. We're going to have to multiply each category together to find the total number of combinations. So if we do that math, we do 24 times 36 times 36 times 24 times 36 times 36, the total number of card possibilities that we can have is almost a billion different combinations of body parts that we can have on Axies. We haven't even started to scratch the surface of what is totally possible. And that is with our current list of body parts, right? Because we know now that evolutions will soon be a thing. So our card count is going to be tripled. So that instead of looking at a chart like this, we're going to be looking at a chart like this.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So
what's that number?
If we do the exact same calculations for this, we are looking at 705 billion total combinations.
Aye. So what do you make of all of that? Where does that put us? So going to be forever exploring that we're going to want to find those perfect combinations. What do you make of that number?
It's almost impossible to even conceive of, right? That is such a huge number. I don't think we're ever going to have a meta where it's truly figured out.
Never.
I think the entire season, when we start to see Battles v3 come out in season 20 or 21, 22, whatever it is, I think that meta is going to be constantly evolving from the beginning of the season to the end of the season. And then when they do the balance patch for the next season, it's going to restart all over again. So we're never really going to see the full combination because it's always going to be evolving. It's always going to be changing. And this number is so high, the full total of body part combinations isn't going to be realized for decades.
Yeah, no, it wouldn't. It's just like, it's the way it is now even. There's things that in the current version of the game that we literally just have not thought of that could be super strong. It's just the way that this works, and it's going to be constantly progressing. I think that things are going to eventually stabilize a little bit more in season their value and utility. Maybe we can then sell back or de-evolve a body part or something like that if we want to be able to shift and be more fluid in the meta rather than right now. It's like you got to completely sell the Axie. I'm sure that they're thinking of ways to make it so that it's a little bit of a smoother process for everyone going forward.
I hope so. Yeah, I definitely hope so. I would love to be able to spend a little SLP instead of some hard-earned ETH to compete in the next season.
Exactly. So we'll see. It's really, we don't know. This super fun speculative video, but there are a lot of question marks that we will have to just wait to find out.
Yeah, and I definitely think that you're right too with your point about still discovering new things in the meta every day. You and Indez came out, pretty much shocked a lot of people with your spiky wing combo. That wasn't something that was in the public consciousness at all, but you and Indez found a way to make it happen.
Yeah, well, I did spiky wing. He went with a very classic Indez bird build with the aqua, but and that was actually courtesy of one of my meditate teammates was running that spiky aqua, and Yeah, I was just decided I'm a double aqua user, so I just gave it a test run as well and was like, yeah, I'm running with this, you know. So
Nice, nice.
but yeah, let's wrap this one up here, Ryan. Do you have any closing thoughts? I mean, it's been a great video. I mean, super intriguing for me to even start to think about this stuff as well.
Yeah, definitely. So with this insane number of total combinations, what we have right now is less than 1% of what we will be seeing in the future. Literally, what we've seen is such a small, tiny portion of everything that's coming down, and we're talking about why SLP is going to recover. But I think the real question is, what is going to replace SLP? You know, SLP is such a hot topic because it is the current source of income for so many people. But as we start to move into Battles v3 with the releasing mechanism, with Ron being introduced into the ecosystem as well, and then with Project K, there are going to be so many other mechanisms for earning income that I think SLP might take a sort of side role.
That is a great question and a great thing to think about, because we know that there are be different streams of revenue and resources. There's Arctic plots and forest plots where you should be gathering wood, and it's just there's so much that we can't even quite think about that I think we're in store for. And you might have a video coming out on why you potentially think SLP won't even matter as much as we currently think. Is that correct?
Exactly. I definitely think that SLP is going to take a more backseat role in people's attention span as they start to focus on these other avenues for revenue.
Well, guys, if you are interested in learning more about Ryan's thought process on that and the future of SLP, then make sure once again that you go to his YouTube channel, because he's going to have a video out on that very shortly. And he has a ton of other amazing Axie Infinity YouTube videos. So subscribe to his channel. And on that note, we are going to wrap this video up. It was a long one. We covered so many different topics. Thanks for being on the channel once again. Ryan, did you want to say anything else?
Yeah, just I mean, thank you so much again for having me on the channel. It really is an honor. I started my Axie Infinity journey watching you, so being able to make videos with you now is really something special. So thanks.
Let's go. Thanks, brother. Appreciate that. All right, everyone. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.